I'm here in Buenos Aires at EZEIZA International Airport, and today I'm going to be flying the 747 in the upper deck all the way to Frankfurt. Ever since I can remember, I have been obsessed with the Boeing 747, and today I'm finally fulfilling one of my dreams to fly in the upper deck of this beautiful aircraft on one of Lufthansa's longest routes from Buenos Aires to Frankfurt. So come with me and let's see what it was like. I've just had a 4 or 5 hour drive from my auntie's house to the airport here, so I'm a little bit hot and sweaty and ready to freshen up. So I'm going to be checking out a few of the lounges here, the Lufthansa Business Class Lounge, which is the Star Alliance Lounge, and also the Priority Pass Lounge that I've got access to, and hopefully somewhere along the way I'll be able to find the shower. We start today's video in EZEIZA's new international terminal, which opened in 2023. It's a beautiful terminal, very clean, and everything is new as you would expect. A quick check of the screens and I was away to find Lufthansa's check-in desk located in Zone C. I arrived at the airport nearly 5 hours before departure, which was a bit ambitious, so I had to wait a few minutes until they opened the desk 4 hours before departure. Once the check-in desk opened, I was excited to finally go through security, freshen up and relax, but the airport had other ideas. To check in my snowboard, it needed to go in the oversized luggage section, and of course this is Argentina and that team was not ready. After 45 minutes I chased it up and I was finally able to check in my snowboard and go through security. The whole dilemma with this snowboard had eaten quite a bit of my lounge time, but I still wanted to have a little tour around and see what was available. The first lounge I visited was the EZEIZA Lounge, which I had access to through my Priority Pass, which comes with my American Express Platinum card. I always like these lounges because I can use them even if I'm flying on a cheap economy fare. It was a clean, modern and comfortable space, and at the time I arrived, not particularly busy. The food was more or less what you would expect in a Priority Pass lounge, but I would say it's a step beyond what you tend to get in Europe. These coconut and dulce de leche cakes looked amazing. There was plenty of salads, a spinach tart, empanadas and a chicken and mushroom stew with rice. They also had toast, biscuits and pastries. In terms of drinks, there was coffee, a soft drinks dispenser, a basic selection of spirits and some Salentine wine, which seems to be popular in all the Argentinian lounges I have visited so far. There was also a good selection of beers, but my main priority was a shower. And the Lufthansa first class terminal that you saw in my previous video could sure learn a thing or two from this lounge. You get a buzzer which lets you know when the shower room is ready. It's not difficult, Lufthansa. The shower room was absolutely perfect, and I can't describe how nice it was to be feeling fresh after a long day of driving to the airport. Now, I did have access to some other lounges as well, so I didn't hang around here for too long. Next on the list was the American Express Centurion Lounge, which again I can access with my Platinum card. It's not a huge space, but they have done a nice job with the classic American Express Centurion Lounge decor and plenty of comfy chairs. There was also a dining room area with more practical tables and chairs to eat your food. The bar is self-service from what I could see, but they did have an excellent range of wines from Chandon and a selection of spirits as well. Of course, I went with some sparkling wine to start things off. There was a tap with still or sparkling water, juices, tea, coffee, soft drinks and yogurts, and even ice cream. Food-wise, there were some cakes, of course, and then the main feature of this lounge is this buffet that goes all the way around. There was a bit of everything and you definitely wouldn't go hungry here. Overall, this was a really nice lounge and consistently good. That's how I would describe the American Express Centurion lounges. You can always expect good food, good drink and a nice space to relax in. Next, I wanted to visit the lounge that I have access with my Lufthansa Business Class ticket, and that is the Star Alliance Lounge here in EZEIZA. It's located next to the One World Lounge down this long corridor. This lounge was fairly busy, but it was still possible to find a comfortable seat. I did really like the decor. It had a bit of a Canadian feel to it. Food wise, they had these delicious looking alfajores, meat empanadas, corn empanadas, a familiar looking chicken and mushroom dish, and more rice. They love rice in these lounges, don't they? There was a small selection of fruits, ham and cheese, and over here some salads. In terms of drinks, they had these now quite familiar looking beers, a small selection of spirits, and of course Salentine sparkling wine, which I do quite like. On the other side of the lounge you can find some more wines, craft gin, and some nuts and olives, along with a bigger selection of fruits. Of course, I had another glass of sparkling wine and a couple of empanadas, which I enjoyed in this very comfy armchair. Time was now disappearing fast for me. The flight was showing us boarding on the screen, so at this point I made my way over to the gate. Walking over to the aircraft, I was feeling very excited. This next flight was the main reason for arranging this whole trip, to fly on the upper deck of a 747. It was an incredible sight to see the 747 sitting there waiting for me to board. I've always thought this is one of the most epic looking airliners in the sky. I was absolutely stoked to be able to make this dream come true. Boarding had already started, but being in business class, I did not have to wait too long to get through. I boarded the aircraft at doors 2 and walked along the business class cabin on the lower deck to find the stairs to the upper deck. The stairs feel quite steep as you're going up them, especially if you're carrying your luggage. Once up there, I made my way over to my seat, in this case 86 kilo. It's a 2-2 configuration, not ideal if you're flying alone, but a window seat was definitely the better end of the deal here. At my seat was a blanket, a pillow and a mattress. Shortly after, the cabin crew gave us some welcome drinks and a pyjama top. One of the main benefits of this window seat is you get tons of storage on the side of your seat, so there is no need to get up and access the overhead lockers. There's this cubby hole ledge to rest your feet on, and the screen does adjust a little bit to face you. The crew handed us a hot towel, which I personally use just for my hands. I know some people use it for their face as well, but I'm not too sure about that. Let me know in the comments below what you think. What do you do with this towel? Shortly after that, it was time for us to leave, and I have to say I was absolutely stoked with the view out of the window. It was a beautiful clear day taking off from EZEIZA, and I couldn't help but think how epic this plane must have looked to the people on the streets below. After takeoff, I went to look around, and although the upper deck does give the feeling of a private, smaller cabin, it did also feel quite cramped, mostly due to Lufthansa's old business class product that we have here with next to no privacy. I got back to my seat and the crew started the dinner service. For appetizer, we were served a tomato and mozzarella skewer, which came at the same time as my drinks, red wine and still water. It was a nice appetizer, which I enjoyed as the sun had started to go down and we had a nice golden glow throughout the cabin. As we passed Sao Paulo in Brazil, our starters were served: roast beef with a side salad and some bread. I did what I always do on these flights back from Argentina and watched a good old Argentinian film. In this case it was Cambio Cambio, an Argentinian film about a black market currency dealer. The main course was beef with couscous and vegetables. The beef was very dry but edible, and to finish off I went for the cheese selection, which I enjoyed with a glass of port. The crew finished the service by handing out a box of chocolates to each passenger. I think this is a nice touch and an easy win for Lufthansa here. At this point, we were leaving Brazil behind and settling into our crossing of the Atlantic Ocean, with the last few rays of sunlight still visible on the horizon. I wanted to get some sleep, so I changed into my pyjama top and turned my seat into a flat bed by fully reclining and laying down the mattress. Finally, I positioned the blanket with the seatbelt easily accessible. I'm 6'3" and I did fit into this bed just about. So it's not a bad size considering the cramped configuration of the cabin. At some point in the night, I went in search of a bottle of water. The cabin crew in the upper deck said they didn't have any, so I went for a wander in the lower deck. In the economy galley, I did find some snacks and some cups of water and also some water bottles. The crew in the lower deck were very nice. They let me take a bottle and they also said I should have been given some water when I asked for it upstairs. As they were so nice, I also asked them for another mini ticket and I was given this one. It's a different style to the one that I had originally. This one turns into a shopping bag. My original Amini ticket, which I opened at home, is a collaboration with Porsche Design. It's very nice looking, but what's actually inside is pretty basic. In the morning, breakfast was served and shortly after we started our descent into Frankfurt. It was once again a beautiful clear day and we enjoyed some more of those awesome wing views from seat 86 Kilo. Overall, this was a fantastic flight. Mostly due to the fact that I completed my dream finally of flying in the upper deck of the 747. This was the same aircraft type that we flew back in 2001 when we emigrated from Argentina to the UK using Lufthansa. I was just 11 years old. Of course, back then we were in economy, so to come back and do this flight in business class in the upper deck, it was a very special moment. So, how much did I pay for this flight? Well, it was £2,089 return from Heathrow to EZEIZA via Frankfurt. So if you break it down, this EZEIZA to Frankfurt leg in business class cost me £995. I think it was great value. The service on board was more than good enough. Nothing particularly good stood out, but there was also nothing particularly bad to report. The only fault that I could find was that the headphones were dirty. And it's because they are just stored in this cubby hole with nothing over them. They don't have any cellophane wrapping to protect them or anything. You're expected to just put the headphone covers that you get in your Amini ticket over them and just use them. Unfortunately, it's the same thing in first class. They just put them in the cubby hole with no protection over them and you just have to trust that they have been cleaned, and I don't think in this case they had been cleaned at all. After landing at Frankfurt, I visited the Lufthansa Centurion Lounge, which I have access to with my American Express Platinum card and an onward business class ticket, which in this case was the last leg of this itinerary from Frankfurt to London. This is a separate video in the channel which I will release in the next couple of weeks. If you enjoy the videos, please let me know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe.